Ohio. This afternoon's session will be the presentation of the recommended budget message and overview from County Administration. Without further ado, I will turn it over to County Administrator Ken Wilson.
Hello, I'm Kenneth Wilson, your Franklin County Administrator. Thank you for joining us for this year's critical discussions on our 2024 budget. The Franklin County Board of Commissioners oversees 16 diverse agencies, spanning from child support enforcement to the Office on Aging, and from the animal shelter to sanitary engineering. Our dedicated team comprises 1,500 employees, tirelessly working together to serve every resident of Franklin County every day. The commissioners and I firmly believe that we have the finest local government team in Ohio. We witness their passion and hard work day in and day out. And I want to kick off this year's budget hearings by extending my heartfelt appreciation for their unwavering commitment. Our community is experiencing unprecedented growth, which is undoubtedly a positive development. However, we must plan for this growth intelligently and equitably. In the current year, the commissioners have committed nearly $2 million to promote equity in healthcare and more than $50 million for affordable housing. We've allocated over $4 million in arts funding and hosted a critical symposium addressing maternal health. We are also diligently working to integrate our health and human service delivery system to ensure that families can conveniently access the support they need in one place. The commissioners bear the responsibility of crafting a budget exceeding $2 billion, catering to over 35 Franklin County agencies and elected offices. This funding allows them to carry out their vital work in support of our 1.3 million residents. In total, Franklin County boasts a workforce exceeding 6,400 members, all united in our mission to steer our community in the right direction. In this year's budget hearings, you'll hear directly from County Administration about our vision and the budget we propose for the coming year. Additionally, leaders from various county agencies will share their plans for the year ahead, outlining their unwavering commitment to supporting our residents and fostering intelligent growth within our community. Thank you once again for joining us for this year's budget hearings. We are excited for you to learn about the exceptional work our team has accomplished this year and the ambitious plans we have in store for our future. Thank you. With me today to present the recommended budget are our two deputy county administrators. I can't start to address without sharing my appreciation for the work and dedication of Deputy Administrators Chris Long and Joy Bibbins, as well as the team from the Office of Management and Budget for their work through the budget process. I would also like to thank all of the elected officers and agency directors for their cooperation and commitment to the residents of Franklin County, with special acknowledgement going to Zach Telerik and his team in the Office of Management and Budget for their assistance in developing the 2024 budget recommendations. The 2024 budget process began in the spring. Following the first quarter review, the Office of Management and Budget, or OMB, prepares an update to the county's long-term financial forecast. This document is used to develop guidance provided to agencies when budget directions are released. In May, the 35 agencies included in the budget identify strategic initiatives and operational performance measures which are linked to the Board of Commissioners' core principles for each program in their strategic business plan. At the same time, agencies and OMB staff review baseline payroll information for the upcoming year. Throughout the summer, agencies submit their budget requests for review. OMB staff meets with agencies to review the prior and current year expenditures and what resources will be needed to accomplish their performance targets during the next year. In the fall, OMB prepares budget briefs and presents them to county administration to develop budget recommendations for each program, ensuring the most cost-effective use of available resources. This culminates in the recommended budget being presented to you today. Today's presentation will be followed by a series of public meetings later this month in which agencies will present their budgets and performance measures. Following any revisions, the budget resolution will be presented to you for final consideration and approval on December the 12th general session agenda. Following approval, OMB analysts will monitor adherence to budget and performance targets throughout the year and will assist agencies if any budget adjustments are required. This continuous oversight assists with keeping the county in a fiscally strong and sustainable position. The 2024 recommended budget includes a projected general fund ending cash balance of 40% of the total 2024 expenditures. This keeps the cash balance above the median levels of other AAA-rated counties by Moody's and Standard & Poor's. At the end of October, Moody's reaffirmed the AAA rating with a stable outlook. In the opinion, it notes that an expanding labor force and growing population will continue to support the county's strong economic profile, while the financial position will remain strong because of the county's prudent budget management and exceptionally strong liquidity. The stable outlook reflects this expectation that the regional economy will continue to grow, supported by strong population trends and the notable institutional presence of the state capitol and the Ohio State University. The county's strong financial position is also expected to be this way due to fiscal management and a resilient revenue base. In recent years, the county has been able to maintain its general fund cash balance with the help of federal support, beginning with the CARES Act in 2020 and subsequent support provided by the American Rescue Plan. The county has received nearly $430 million in direct federal support. This includes $8 million from the Federal Emergency Management Agency, $76 million from the Coronavirus Relief Fund authorized by the CARES Act, and $89 million through the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, and $255 million from the Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund through the American Rescue Plan. Through the end of 2023, the county will have utilized nearly 2/3 of this funding, providing rental, food, employment, and other assistance throughout the community while avoiding the need to utilize cash reserves. The 2024 recommended budget will ensure that the full $255 million from the Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund is obligated by the required December 31st of 2024 deadline. The 2024 recommended budget includes nearly $100 million in support for from those various sources, which leaves approximately $50 million remaining from the Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund to be expended before the end of 2026. While this funding has been critical to preserving and funding policy initiatives that align with our strategic priorities within our Health and Human Services Agency and nonprofit partners, we must also prepare now for the time when these funds will no longer be available. Under your guidance, we will continue to review and monitor our fiscal performance while delivering the results and outcomes to every resident every day that this board and the community have come to expect. We are excited to be able to present a forward-thinking and fiscally responsible budget proposal for the next year and to talk about how we're going to use that budget to help meet the Commissioner's strategic priorities for 2024 and beyond.
General fund revenue in the 2024 recommended budget is expected to be $665 million. The largest proportion of general fund revenue remains the sales tax, which comprises 60% of the general fund revenue. Sales tax collections have continued to remain strong throughout 2023, with revenue coming in 4.4% higher than last year through October. However, this level of growth is expected to decline over the next year as the economic impact of the rate increases by the Federal Reserve and policy decisions regarding Medicaid, food assistance, and student loan repayments are realized. Based on the forecast of retail sales from Moody's Analytics, the 2024 recommended budget expects collections of $399 million, an increase of 1.5% from the amount projected for 2023. While sales tax receipts are expected to be negatively impacted by the Federal Reserve, investment earnings are expected to remain strong at nearly $35 million. This is nearly 2.5 times the amount collected in 2021. Real estate tax collections remained strong during 2023. Along with state reimbursements, revenue increased 2% from the prior year as a result of new construction. With the estimates from the new valuations, the 2024 recommended budget includes approximately $71 million to be received from this source, which is $15 million more than the 2023 projection. Intergovernmental revenue includes $50 million in reimbursements from the Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, authorized by the American Rescue Plan Act. These funds will be used to reimburse a number of initiatives, including support of the Healthy Homes program at Nationwide Children's Hospital to retain and expand affordable housing in the Linden neighborhood, and the pandemic floor at the OSU Wexner Medical Center that will include a dedicated exhaust system that will enable an increase in the number of beds operating as full airborne infection isolation rooms. Intergovernmental revenue includes $26 million for reimbursement from the State Public Defender's Office. The state biennial budget for fiscal years 2024 and 2025 in House Bill 33 continued investment from the state of Ohio for the support of appointed counsel. While the first half of this year saw the reimbursement rate fall to 66%, the rate returned to 85% at the start of the new biennium. For the 2024 recommended budget, county agencies and the courts agreed that it would be prudent to budget for an 80% reimbursement rate based on historical fluctuations. The 2024 recommended budget contains $660 million in general fund appropriations, which is $22 million, or 3.4% more, than the 2023 projected expenditures. A majority of the general fund budget is related to personnel costs, with $261 million allocated for salaries and wages and $114 million for fringe benefits. The next largest category is materials and services, covering nearly 20% of the general fund budget. To account for inflationary increases, agencies were provided a 2.5% increase in various materials and services items. The estimated impact of this allowance was approximately $2.6 million when compared to the 2023 budget that was approved last December. The 2024 recommended budget includes nearly $63 million in grant expenditures, including $37 million to community partnerships, $16 million to economic development and planning, $4 million to the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and $4 million to the Veteran Service Commission. In addition to the other budgeted expense categories, the 2023 recommended budget includes $18 million in contingency to meet unforeseen expenses during the year, which is the maximum 3% that is authorized by the Ohio Revised Code when excluding one-time expenses. As shown in the chart, 57%, or $373 million of the general fund budget, is allocated to the provision of justice and public safety. More than half of that amount, $204 million, supports the operations of the Franklin County Sheriff's Office. The 2024 recommended budget includes the addition of 27 positions to support the new Recruitment, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Division within the Sheriff's Office. The creation of this new division will give the Sheriff's Office the resources necessary to increase outreach efforts and to promote equity in future hiring. The reserves and debt total $106 million, including $36 million for the payment of the county's annual debt service obligations, the Commissioner's contingency, and other reserves to meet year-end payroll obligations as a result of termination and wellness payouts, and $39 million in various inter-fund transfers. These transfers include nearly $5 million for the mandated share of programs administered by the Franklin County Department of Job and Family Services, $5 million set aside for the sanitary engineer, and $2.5 million for the drainage engineer in support of the county's stormwater efforts.
While a majority of the general fund budget supports justice, public, and safety, this function accounts for 20% of the $2 billion all funds budget recommended for all county funds in 2024. The largest portion of all funds budgeted is dedicated to social and human services. At nearly $870 million, social and human services represent 40% of the total recommended budget. Franklin County delivers a variety of social and human services in order to meet the needs of its residents. The county and its agencies continue to integrate and collaborate in approaching this work. The 2024 budget includes $255 million for the Franklin County Board of Development Disabilities. The board serves over 20,000 individuals with developmental disabilities so they can live, work, learn, and participate in the community. This includes more than 7,500 served in the residential support program, who received home and community-based services such as housing, transportation, employment services that are leveraged for federal Medicaid funding. Another $200 million of these expenditures support the work of the Franklin County Children's Services. The agency is projecting to conduct almost 17,000 intake-related assessments this year. Franklin County Children's Services continues to improve the percentage of youth initially placed with KIN. Research shows that youth who need to be removed from their home due to safety concerns reunite more quickly and are less likely to re-enter agency custody when they are initially placed with relatives or non-relatives with whom they have a bond or special relationship. Since 2017, the percentage of kinship placements has increased from 30% to an average of 42%. The recommended budget includes $172 million for the Alcohol, Drug, and Mental Health, or ADAM-H Board. ADAM-H will continue to maintain and enhance its system of care by addressing mental health and addiction system capacity to meet growing unmet needs and demand for services. ADAM-H is working with community partners to build the new Franklin County Mental Health and Addiction Crisis Center to serve as the central preferred destination in Franklin County for behavioral health crisis needs. When completed, the center will provide a complete crisis care continuum for adults and will offer no wrong door policy to ensure that anyone who arrives at the facility receives or gets connected to services. The Franklin County Office on Aging provides a centralized access to programs and individualized services for older adults and their caregivers so they can preserve their independence and quality of life. The proposed budget of almost $64 million will support nearly 15,000 seniors enrolled in the Senior Options Program, which provides community-based services such as home-delivered meals, homemaker services, adult daycare, emergency response system, and respite care. Included in the budget is support for expanding services provided in emergency departments and community centers and that have been identified as priorities based on the feedback from the 2021 Central Ohio Adult Needs Assessment and other outreach efforts, as well as the continuation of free home delivered meals in 2024. These agencies are able to provide these resources primarily through the $491 million in support from the property tax levies approved by the voters. Due to the tax reduction factors, levy agencies will not receive additional revenue due to the new valuations during their current levy cycles. These agencies will only receive an increase in revenue in 2024 due to new construction, which is projected to increase of 1% from the prior year. These property taxes are a part of the overall $952 million received from all taxes, which represents almost half of the $1.9 billion in the total all funds revenue projected for 2024. Intergovernment revenue, which includes state and federal funds, is the second largest source of funding at 27%. This is the primary source that supports the operations of the Franklin County Department of Job and Family Services and Child Support Enforcement Agency. The next largest category is service fees and charges, which represents 14% of all revenues. This is a primary source of revenue for the chargebacks to county agencies for health care as well as all workers' compensation coverage, which nearly $130 million. The Board of Commissioners have established 6 core principles to provide more clarity about why programs the county offers exist, what value they offer to residents, and how they benefit the community. They are providing supportive health and human services, providing community safety, security, and effective justice, promoting good stewardship of natural resources, environmental sustainability, and civic engagement, promoting racial equity in all areas of government, education, criminal justice, health, housing, and economic success, promoting job creation and strategic economic development, providing efficient, responsive, and fiscally sustainable government operations. The Office of Management and Budget has worked with each of these agencies throughout the budget process to link each of the 134 programs in the 2024 recommended budget with the county core principles that is most related. In the overview, we covered how this budget relates to the core principles of fiscally responsible operations. For the remainder of today's presentation, we want to highlight various initiatives related to the other 5 core principles. In addition to the levy-supported agencies discussed earlier, the commissioners make significant investments in health and human services through the Community Partnerships Program. Community Partnerships engages with nonprofit partners across Franklin County to assist with providing high-quality services to residents. This includes support for Charitable Pharmacy of Central Ohio to provide low-income residents free prescriptions, drug education, health education, resource referrals, and healthy food access from the Mid-Ohio Food Collective in the Linden Market, located at 2 charitable pharmacies located in Franklin County. Primary One Health is also receiving support to continue to provide comprehensive, high-quality, and affordable health care and supportive services to meet the health needs of women and their families in eliminating racial equities to improve maternal, infant birth outcomes, and women's reproductive health. In 2022, the Commissioners allocated $3.5 million to 21 nonprofit organizations in Franklin County. Some included All That Teens Helpful About Tomorrow, which focuses on meaningful mentorship for teens, preparing the next generation for the ever-changing workforce, and empowering teens by using evidence and research-based tools to break the poverty cycle. Also included is Community Mediation Services of Central Ohio. Their housing stability and homelessness prevention programs works in close collaboration with the Franklin County Municipal Court, Columbus Legal Aid, and a number of other community partners to reduce staggering eviction rates of about 18,000 annually among the neediest individuals and families in Franklin County. The 2024 recommended budget includes funding to support the 3rd and final year of support for these programs. During a challenging period for nonprofits marked by financial uncertainties and increased demand for services, the Board of Commissioners demonstrated a commendable commitment to the welfare of the community, recognizing the vital role played by local nonprofit organizations. The board allocated American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA, funds in the amount of $8 million for capital improvement grants specifically designed to support these vital institutions. This strategic decision not only bolsters the resilience and sustainability of nonprofits, but also underlines the board's understanding of the enduring impact these organizations have on the well-being of the community. By investing in capital improvements, the Board of Commissioners has not only provided a lifeline to struggling nonprofits, but also positioned them for long-term success, ensuring they can continue their essential work and meet the evolving needs of the community during these trying times. In the 2024 budget recommendation, ARPA funds will continue to be invested in the community, with $1 million set aside to assist Lutheran Social Services Choices to expand their domestic violence shelter. There is also $3 million to support the launch of the Eastland Prosperity Center by the Mid-Ohio Food Collective in Southeast Franklin County. This exciting project will feature a full-fledged food pantry and potential collaborations with partners like Primary One Health and Franklin County Job and Family Services, in addition to more.
The 2024 recommended budget for justice and public safety includes $111 million in the general fund to support the operations of the courts and $46 million for criminal and civil prosecution and legal defense services. The recommended budget provides support for the Domestic Relations and Juvenile Court to add 3 full-time positions to ensure youth processed through its one-door program are given proper care by providing adequate 24/7 operations. This program is part of the court's Juvenile Detention Alternatives Initiative, working to address the needs of justice-involved youth so that they can avoid time in detention. The recommended budget also includes the addition of 1 liaison with the Child Support Enforcement Agency to assist with a growing caseload in order to provide timely case processing. As a result of a new magistrate added this year within the domestic court, the 2024 recommended budget includes an additional attorney in the prosecuting attorney's office to handle the additional caseload within its juvenile division. However, caseloads have been increasing in other divisions, and the 2024 recommended budget includes additional positions to address these as well. These include an attorney in the civil division to handle additional requests from county agencies, an additional victims witness assistant who will help address the rising number of strangulation and domestic violence cases, and a legal secretary to help reduce the backlog of over 300 grand jury cases. In addition, the recommended budget provides support for an additional position within the arson unit to deal with the increasing complexity and number of such cases, as well as 2 attorneys in the special victims unit. This unit handles a wide range of high-level felonies that require a significant amount of time devoted to investigation and preparation for trial. In addition to prosecuting all of these cases through trial and sentencing, these prosecutors also practice what is known as vertical prosecution, in that they review, determine the appropriate charges, and present all of their own cases to the grand jury and are then assigned to each case they present. To support the sustainability of these positions, the prosecutor's office will be using its asset forfeiture funds to reimburse the general fund for the first-year cost of the arson and special victims unit positions. In addition, the prosecutor's office will be using additional resources in its delinquent tax assessment collection fund to mitigate the impact on the general fund. Along with the amounts noted in the chart, the recommended budget includes continued support of the municipal court specialty dockets in the amount of $490,000, as well as $250,000 in ongoing support from the general fund for the Guardianship Services Board. Utilizing the $5 million transferred from the general fund for the support of various water and sewer projects, the 2024 recommended budget includes funding from the Kanawha-Roslyn Sewer Project in Sharon Township. This $7.8 million project will construct 5,222 linear feet of gravity sewer line, a 200-gallon per minute pump station, and 480 linear feet of sanitary force main that discharges into the City of Columbus's sanitary sewer system just east of the Olentangy River. This project will serve approximately 120 homes that do not have access to centralized sanitary sewers and rely on home sewage treatment systems to dispose of their wastewater. For those areas that are not served by sanitary sewer, the 2024 recommended budget includes $1 million to partner with Franklin County Public Health for an illicit discharge compliance program. This program will secure grants and other public funding to assist property owners with the elimination, upgrades, or replacements of home sewage treatment systems, including the costs of connecting to sanitary sewers. In addition, $2 million from the Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund will be provided to the County Engineer's Office to support stormwater infrastructure by purchasing needed equipment and providing the local share of the Zuber Road Drainage Project. These environmentally sustainable initiatives will be in addition to the $2.5 million included in the recommended budget for support of the Stormwater Management Program. This is a partnership between the County Engineer's Office, the Franklin County Public Health Department, and Franklin Soil and Water Conservation District to invest in water quality. These investments are needed as a result of the increased workload as part of expanded stormwater projects and reporting requirements in support of the county's National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, NPDES, Phase 2 permit in order to address illicit discharge detection and elimination. Related to civic engagement, the recommended budget includes nearly $16 million for the Board of Elections to cover the 2024 presidential election. This is $3.5 million more than the amount approved last year to take into account the additional staffing costs and election supplies necessary for the expected increase in turnout. The budget supports the conversion of 4 positions from seasonal to full-time employees. These positions are assigned to critical election tasks within the registration services and election operations programs to support our residents in exercising their right to vote.
The Rise Together blueprint pointed out the role of racism as an underlying factor in poverty. The commissioners continue to take actions to re-envision the county's approach to racial equity. We were the first in the state to declare racism as a public health emergency, and as such, racism is a root cause resulting in disparate outcomes in health, education, employment, housing, and criminal justice. One of the first action steps from the blueprint was to provide training to county staff to discuss the role of race and racism in poverty. In order to create and sustain an organizational culture that applies equity principles both internally and externally, those efforts must and do continue. This approach has been embraced not just by within the Board of Commissioner agencies, but throughout the county amongst various elected offices, courts, and independent boards. The Clerk of Court's office is promoting DEI trainings on topics that will include unconscious bias, microaggressions, respecting ethnic and racial differences, using an equity and inclusion lens, disability etiquette, civil treatment for workplace leaders, and generational differences. In the Franklin County Coroner's Office, 40% of the new hires this year are people of color and 60% are female, non-binary. The Coroner's Office is also currently developing an agency DEI plan that will be released in the first quarter of 2024. It will include emphasis on employment and recruitment, internships, career pathways, purchasing, staff training, and community outreach. The probate court has earmarked funds in 2024 for court-specific training, while the domestic relations and juvenile court has requested an addition of a director of diversity, equity, and inclusion to lead the development and implementation of strategic initiatives, policies, practices, programs, and training, and best practices concerning matters in the court. The Court of Common Pleas General Division's Access to Justice Committee, working in conjunction with the court's executive team, recently created an action plan that establishes goals throughout the court and the probation department. The action plan includes a roadmap to ensure DEI efforts are intentional and accomplished in an effective manner. Successful implementation of the action plan will ensure court staff are more knowledgeable when interacting with one another and the public. The Alcohol, Drug, and Mental Health Board engaged internal and external facilitators to develop trainings on themes and topics using feedback for staff engagement survey, amended its strategic business plan with the goal to diversify service provider network, increase equity and related advocacy, and it is using data analysis to ensure equity in access, utilization, and outcomes. These are just few of the examples as we continue on a journey to ingrain racial equity in our county's DNA. The Emergency Rental Assistance Program, or ERA, was established by the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021 and the American Rescue Plan Act, provided additional funding to continue the program. Franklin County JFS and other contracted partners dispersed over $38 million of this funding in direct rental and utility assistance for our most vulnerable residents through the end of 2022. Because of our good stewardship of ERA funds, the U.S. Treasury saw fit to award Franklin County nearly $51 million in new and in reallocated ERA funds in April of this year. With this funding, the county has been able to serve over 11,000 households with funding from ERA 1 and ERA 2 programs, while nearly 6,500 of these had incomes of less than 30% of the area median income, while just under 2,500 had incomes between 20 and 50% of AMI. These vital resources came at a time when eviction filings were at a 5-year high. As you can see on the map, the areas of the highest need align with those concentrated areas of poverty noted in the Rise Together Poverty Blueprint. While the emergency rental assistance funding addresses short-term need to avoid eviction, longer-term solutions are needed to address the deficit of affordable housing in our community. The Board of Commissioners partnered with the Affordable Housing Trust of Columbus and Franklin County in 2022 to establish the Emerging Developers Accelerator Program with support from the Coronavirus Local Fiscal Relief Recovery Fund. This program provides training, educational, and networking opportunities in order to increase the financial capacity of minority developers to increase the number of affordable housing units and transform neighborhoods. The inaugural cohort, which graduated earlier this year, has already created or preserved 19 affordable housing units to date, with 48 additional units in the pipeline. The recommended budget includes $2 million as a part of that initial commitment for continued support of the program in the upcoming year. In 2023, a commitment for the development of 572 affordable housing units was made through the county's Magnet Fund. Supported by conveyance fee revenue, this program partners with developers to leverage low-income tax credits for the construction of affordable housing units. The recommended budget includes sufficient appropriations in the Affordable and Emergency Housing Fund to support these commitments, as well as a new round of funding in the coming year. To better focus on these efforts, the 2024 recommended budget also includes a new position under the Board of Commissioners. This position, along with the assignment of a senior policy analyst, will focus on research and coordinating all of the county-supported initiatives in the critical area of affordable housing and other initiatives that align with the Commissioner's core principles. The late Nelson Mandela reminds us that what counts in life is not the mere fact that we have lived. It is what difference we have made in the lives of others. As a result of the Board of Commissioners' vision and actions, the 2024 recommended budget presented to you today is able to make that difference by maintaining the county's strong fiscal position while providing innovative programming to enable all residents to share in the progress and the growth of our community. Through the dedication of our employees and the many partners who offer their time and talents to collectively address our challenges, we continue to ensure that every resident's needs are met on a fundamental social, wellness, economic, and environmental level. Budget hearings have been scheduled to provide additional details that we were not able to cover today. On November the 28th, you will hear from your health and human service agencies, while on November 30th, you will hear from your agencies providing centralized services. County administration looks forward to working with the Board of Commissioners as it deliberates and takes action to finalize the 2024 budget. Thank you. God bless everyone. And we are now here to take questions.
Hi, I suppose you mean from the commissioners?
Yes.
Well, one, I don't want to speak on behalf of my colleagues. Certainly, I will defer to her after I make these quick comments. But one, let me just thank the administration for taking the time to put together a very comprehensive, albeit general, presentation of county operations and the things that we are prioritized or proposing to be prioritized. I do want to acknowledge that I know Commissioner O'Grady wanted to be here today, but he is chairing a very important legislative committee on behalf of the County Commissioners Association of Ohio. That's so important because embedded in many of these components of this budget are legislative actions that affect everything that we do. Commissioner Crawley and I both served in the legislature and know all too much how important the actions of the legislature are and how they affect the actions of Franklin County. So thank you. And before we go into questions, I at least want to give my colleague an opportunity to make some general comments too before I start with questions. And I even defer to her to start with questions she wants.
No, thank you, Commissioner Boyce. I will kick it back to you to start your questions as I'm still formulating some of mine. I just want to underscore what you said about why what Commissioner O'Grady is doing right now is so important to the work that we do. And quite frankly, important to all of the things that county administration just covered in their overview of the 2024 budget. One of the reasons why we have had to make some significant investments that were highlighted is because we have a legislature that has not always and isn't necessarily working for the people. And we like to say all politics is local, and you get to see how the commissioner's priorities and you say the commissioner's priorities, but these are the public's priorities, right? This is what the public said they want to see us invest our dollars in, which is why we don't get pushback, kind of like the city does, because from the beginning, not the beginning, but from the time that we published the poverty blueprint plan until today, everything falls in line with that framework. But having the additional recovery dollars allows us to make even more investments in some critical areas. And we have had to do so because the legislature has not shown up. And so to all the people that are on the call who are listening, I want to continue to say thank you for the work that you all are doing, directors and staff. Because if it wasn't for us working together as a team and understanding the needs of the community, I don't know where our community would be. We already know that we have a lot of places that are thriving, but there definitely are some of our neighbors who are not seeing the success and the progress and the prosperity that others share in. And what we are able to do with taxpayer dollars is try to make sure that everyone has the same opportunities to thrive and not just survive. So I will leave it at that. Thank you, Commissioner Boyce, for just even that segue to talk about the legislature and how what we do now is so critical because we just have a legislature that's not working for the people.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Commissioner Crawley. And I think you said it all very well. I will say, and again, I want to thank all the administration for your hard work. Not just for this budget document, but what you do every day. We definitely rely on you to carry out this mission and this plan every single day that we wake up. So thank you. And I also want to say, don't take my line of questioning throughout this process as anything other than me trying to better align my own understanding and thought with that of what, as Commissioner Crawley just said, which is the public's budget, people's budget. So I just want to make sure we get there. So I want to be very clear about that. So a couple of things. One, let me say that it is very difficult for me, at least. I don't want to speak for Commissioner Crawley. It's very difficult for me to decipher a lot of information and then just fire back a bunch of questions. So I need some time to take this in a little bit. And so my line of questioning may come out actually more in the direct department hearings because I've got to kind of process what we've got here so far. And while my office has been brief, we've really not had a chance to sort of reconcile those conversations. That being said, so my first line of questioning is really at this sort of 30,000 foot level, and it probably directed at Zach Telerik and Administrator Wilson. And that's, you mentioned it in your presentation about the implications of inflation and the sort of financial environment that we're currently in the United States, coming off of COVID relief sort of impact funds in various ways. And and you talk about the adjustments that we're making now to accommodate some of the projected impacts of inflation. But my question is twofold. One, have we projected beyond this immediate year in terms of inflationary impact, and not just from the lens of how we're accommodating it from a budgetary standpoint, but also from a broader impact, meaning that, how are we expecting inflation to begin to impact the economy and spending? Because that is an implication on sales tax. Sales tax is a use tax. Use tax is directly linked to the economy. If inflation is happening and if people are feeling tight with their own wallets, then it's not me saying this, it is a fact, they're less likely to spend on certain things that impact our budget. So I want to just think about that. Connected to that, part B of that question is, I didn't hear you mention rainy day fund set asides. Given the unknown of the next few years of the impact of inflation, what are we doing sort of to prepare for that in a way where we can take some of those protectionary action now to even begin to think about 2025, 2026, 2027, and years long after, the pandemic and it sort of even the inflationary markups.
Thank you for
Start there.
Thank you for your question, Commissioner Boyce. Commissioner Crawley, Director Telerik and I will answer the question. Each year, we look at our county's long-range financial forecast, along with, after that forecast is completed, we're always looking in depth at the budget on a quarterly basis. And the long-range forecast, in effect, informs the guidance that we give to agencies when we go into the start of the year. And we try to take into account how, on both the expenditure side and the revenue side, as we make recommendations to you all, that we are in effect beyond being balanced, that we are looking at adding more than we spend as far as the county's ending cash balances are. We look at trying to ensure that we are equal or at the place where other AAA bond rated entities are. For example, the recommendation that we're bringing to you today is has reserves of 40% of the planned 2024 expenditures. I will let the Director Telerik go in more greater detail as it relates to the rainy day fund and what the $85 million represent there.
And if I could, before Zach, before you go, Director Telerik, before you go, I just add, and then I'll defer to Commissioner Crawley for, I know she's probably got some questions. If you could add in your comments, I know that we're not just rated by Moody's, that we have another rating that we use. And if you could talk about what their rating is in comparison and their outlook is, I think would also be helpful, because one rating agency is just one rating agency. You got to have the collective, is how, if we were going in the market with bonds, that's what would be analyzed in terms of pricing. And so it's important the public hear that too, even if it isn't an exact mirror of Moody's. So if you could make that my part C.
Commissioner Boyce, Commissioner Crawley, yes. We also hold the highest rating possible with Standard & Poor's rating service. And on an annual basis, they have a normal practice of reviewing the county's debt and presenting a series of questions to us. And we are fortunate enough to be community. Usually it ranges, we are in the top 1.8 to 2% of all counties in the country that hold a double AAA bond rating by two of the three rating agencies that look at our fiscal sustainability. And we also are rated by Moody's on the last few years. They've added a ESG score, which we have a high score there as well.
Yeah, that's great too. I was hoping to get their outlook. If they did they, because I know you kind of talked
Our
about
outlook is
Moody's
stable
outlook. Okay,
with
that's
Moody's.
good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so, yeah, Commissioner, and we can definitely, after this meeting, get that to your office as well as the other commissioners, the Moody's rating opinions. With regard to some of the long-term financial forecasts, so we do look as part of our long-term forecast, we do forecast the consumer price index out the 5 years of the long-term forecast. The information from Moody's Analytics is actually specific to Franklin County, so it's not a national CPI measure, but it is focused on Franklin County. So we do get that information on a semi-annual basis that they'll provide to the county. In addition, we use their county estimates of the Employment Cost Index, or ECI, to forecast the potential cost for personal services, salaries, and wages as part of our long-term forecast out through 2027. Again, that's on a Franklin County basis, not a nationwide. And then likewise, that also impacts the sales tax revenue, as you mentioned. And so the expected increase in retail sales is an estimate that we also receive as part of that package, where they will forecast that out for us to use as kind of our proxy for the increase in the sales tax revenue. So we do kind of monitor that as well. We work with the county's investment advisor on investment earnings in terms of the outlook for not just the short term, for the upcoming budget year, but when we do update the long-term forecast, we do work with with the treasurer's office and the investment advisor to help map that out. So again, knowing the impact of the expectations from the market to try to incorporate that to the best of our ability through the long range forecast. And likewise, we use those different factors for consumer price index, employment cost, and other assumptions in terms of the expenditure of what that impact would be. Healthcare has a different inflation factor based on information we may get from our actuary through forecasts through, say, a Siegel that provides healthcare projections. But throughout the long-term forecast, we are projecting that we meet that benchmark of the average of the double AAA counties. So the last information that we received, it was about 38% of expenditures is kind of that baseline target. And so the long-term financial forecast does have the county meeting that 38% threshold through 2027. With regard to the rainy day fund, there is currently $85 million in the rainy day fund. The statutory max is 1/6 of the prior year expenditures. So if we exclude some of the one-time, the ARPA dollars, like as Ken mentioned in the message with contingency, we're getting close to that statutory maximum. The last few years, at the end of the year, we'll determine based on the available resources, if there's any additional excess cash to ask for your approval to move that into the additional rainy day fund. But at this point, there is no drawdown from the rainy day fund. That is expected to maintain at $85 million, not just through this budget, but through the long-term forecast. And then as Ken mentioned, that 40% at the end of 2024 equates to approximately $265 million in cash reserves. That would include our rainy day fund, approximately $145 million in just general fund unobligated cash, as well as some various other reserve funds, such as our 27th pay reserve. So every 11 to 12 years, there's usually an extra pay period that the county has to address. The last one was in 2020. The next one will be in 2032. So through the end, currently there's $5.5 million already set aside for that. The plan in this budget is to have $1 million at the end of this year, with $1 million next year to be at $7.5 million, or roughly 75% of that. So again, getting to the point where we have that 27th pay while the resources are there, so that when it comes time in 2031, 32, that we don't have to assign other resources. So again, to be that forward-looking outlook.
Okay, thank you.
I just have two initial questions. One is, and it might be too early, and so if it is, you could just be like, I don't have an answer. It's too early for us to know. But following up with a conversation I just had with the auditor who's making some requests for, excuse me, 2024, do you have any kind of idea or any kind of like impact that you can forecast with the new property reevaluation or valuations that's taking place, as well as the school levy that passed, even though it's the city of Columbus? Does it have any unintended, could it have any unintended consequences as we look at tax and revenues?
Ted, I can take this if you'd like. So with the general fund revenue, we are expecting to see about a $15 million increase from the new valuations. About 27% is the estimate that we're using. With regard to the other levy agencies for the health, for Board of Developmental Disabilities, Children's Services, there is no impact from the new valuations based on what's referred to as the House Bill 920 or the tax reduction factors. The amount that those levies collect is based on the initial approval. So as values go up, what's referred to as the effective rate goes down, so that there isn't that inflationary increase from just the new valuations. It only applies to what's referred to as the inside millage, which is that general fund portion. With regard to the other levies for the Columbus City Schools or some of the other school districts that passed, there's probably not a direct impact. Right. There may be a small amount in terms of auditor and treasurer fees. Those are based on a percentage of total collections. So with the new levies being added to the duplicate, there should be more tax collections in general, which would increase those fees. I think on the opposite side is the potential, if given what the increases are, if individuals have difficulty paying their property taxes, there could be that. But at least at this point, I have not. And I have talked to the auditor's office this week as well. And I think we'll have to continue those discussions of what that impact would be, if we need to kind of take into account that as we're moving forward through this budget process, as well as we go through next year as part of our monitoring of how that impacts the settlement.
Right. Because in my conversation with him, and I think I talked to you about it a little bit, that they will have a request, because he's trying to forecast what the impact will be, and then asking for support from the commissioners for several $1 million. And so was just trying to see how that would impact our own just revenue. And then my second question is debt service. And I'm sorry if I missed.
Commissioner Crawley, if I
Yeah.
could just pause you one moment. Administrator Wilson wants to address your question.
Oh,
I wanted to, Commissioner, I wanted to address your question a little further. Deputy Administrator Long and I met with the auditor and his chief deputy a few days ago, and we talked about that impact on homeowners that are within the Columbus City School District. As a result of the successful passage of the levy, there will be an increase in the number of taxpayers that see a tax bill of an increase of $1,000, for example. And there will be an increase in the number of taxpayers that are receiving a increase of $500 to $1,000 than it was before. And one of the things that the auditor talked about is forecasting a need to obtain additional resources for their property tax assistance fund, to have a place where vulnerable senior citizens or other folks with modest means, to help them be able to absorb the impact of the levy. Deputy Administrator Long, you want to add anything?
Oh, thank you, Ken. That's exactly right, Commissioner Crawley, Commissioner Boyce, to the concerns that the auditor raised prior to the election. The valuation changes wouldn't necessarily result in an increase in taxes, but post the election results, then, as Ken indicated, I think the initial estimates are that what was going to be about 10% of residents in Columbus and Dublin in particular, with a $1,000 a year increase, is now going to go up to about 22% of the tax-paying entities that have a rise in their yearly bill. And to Ken's point, and Commissioner, to your conversations, additional strategies being looked at to assist homeowners. The other piece I would add is that there will be an increase, and we have prepared for that as well within the Board of Revision. There may be homeowners that request a review of their tax valuation. The legal elements of being able to get relief through the Board of Revision may be limited, but those hearings will still go forward, and we're prepared for that as well.
Commissioner
Okay,
Crawley,
and
if I
so
could.
just on that other line of questioning, we'll now move into sales tax, and I don't know if you have
Commissioner,
it.
I do apologize for cutting you off again. I'm so sorry. DCA Bivens would like to add comment as well.
Just really quick, Commissioner, I know that the auditor is making his rounds through the various offices and requesting additional dollars to support for those who are vulnerable during, tax issues. I would ask that as he is having those conversations, that we can have a more aligned conversation, because where his TAP program ends, there needs to be another additional look at for those who are delinquent, and I don't believe that program covers it. I think it's if you are an inability to pay. So as he's, doing his research, I would ask that we look at more of an aligned, have a more aligned conversations to bring in all the things, so that where he could not assist someone, another department or another agency can, because it would be a
Right.
good use of fiscal dollars.
Right. And he has two separate programs. So one is a one-time ask that, because of what has just passed, is a one-time ask of approximately $10 million. And we could talk about this more offline, but based off of what has just happened in the election, coupled with the evaluations, there's a request to support, and then this other one is PTAP. And so, yeah, I can see more alignment with that in the treasurer's program. Okay, so next, the other question that I had was about forecasting when it comes to sales tax on the passage of legalizing marijuana. And I don't know the timelines of when that would even go into effect. I know that the legislature is, legislating and doing what they do. But what will there be an increase in 2024, or would that get pushed to 2025?
Commissioner, there is active conversation amongst your former colleagues at the legislature on this topic. As you know, the initiated statute would go into effect 30 days after passage. It is unclear how often the legislature will be in town around that time, in terms of, and as obviously as you know, they could theoretically repeal the entire statute if they wish to do so, since it's an initiated statute. There's a lot of conversation about redirecting funds to, for instance, law enforcement or other entities. So active conversation. In fact, to both you and Commissioner Boyce's comments earlier at the beginning of this hearing, one of the items I believe that is on the conversation that Commissioner O'Grady is talking with colleagues is exactly that. So it's unclear what will occur. We are attempting to also get potential estimates if the language of the initiated statute maintains as passed, that we can get to all three of you as well as soon as we have that, in terms of what the sales tax would look like, what gets taxed. There's differences between the edibles versus other arrangements in terms of what's food and what's not food. All of those items are in the specifics of how that gets implemented. And so conversation that as we get information both from CCAO and from other resources and analysis, we will make sure that we get that to each of your offices.
Thank you. Does anybody have anything else before I ask my next question? All right. Thank you for that. So next question, and forgive me if I missed it, Zach, when you went over your remarks, I was trying to follow along. Did you talk about debt service?
The 2024 recommended budget includes approximately 36 million to cover the county's debt service obligations for the
You said 36 million?
36 million, correct?
Okay, thank you.
Are you asking another question?
I'm good right now.
Okay. Yeah, the only other question again, I feel like I need some time to absorb some of this. Is a lot, I would just say, as I said in the past, that when you all do the presentation and we kind of, even the public when they're listening, that's a lot to absorb in that time. It's hard to sort of, and the pace to which you're reading at or going at it's hard to kind of keep up. But and so I need some time to process. I don't want to speak for Commissioner Crawley, but the one thing that you brought up that does stick out to me is all the sort of one-time federal refunds we've got from ARPA to CARES and all that stuff. It would be helpful if we had sort of one report on just those funds and that really sort of line itemed out kind of how we've utilized the funds, what's left. And I think for the last tranche of funds that are left here, I think that we should be a little more tactical and strategic with those. And so I'd like to just kind of be fully knowledgeable of that. So if there's something like that, Commissioner Crawley, I don't know if that would be helpful to you, but
Absolutely.
okay, yeah, I think that would give us a little context as we go into this last phase of spending.
Nope, we can definitely, we have documentation. We'll put that together with all the different programs. So yep, that will not be a problem and we'll get that to you here soon.
Excellent.
Yeah, I would say this is just a comment as, I mean, I am trying to just understand all that was said. For the agency presentations, I said this last year, and so it remains true this year. Please tell me all of the, shiny objects, right? Tell me all the things that worked, but also tell me where there's needs for improvement. It's cool that we talked about positions or that there's new positions to do, added to each agency. But like, I would love to hear more about, okay, we have, so just for instance, the Office on Aging, we know that there is an increase in aging residents who are relying on services. The awareness has been phenomenal this year. The social media, the outreach from aging has just been phenomenal. And so I would assume that there would be an increase, and we're starting to see that. So like now, what are the new opportunities that you all are looking to do with the 2024 funds? And if you're adding new positions, what is the strategic plan, right? Like, what is your own SWOT analysis for your agencies? I hope you all have done that since you know what you're asking for. But like, tell us what the strengths are, the weaknesses, and the opportunities. I just don't want it to be like a song and dance. Like, here's all the great things, and this is why you should pass the budget.
Understood. Kenneth Wilson, County Administrator. Yes, it's important to talk about challenges as well as talking about opportunities, because when we think about the Office on Aging, we've amplified outreach, and as a result of amplifying the outreach, expenditures have followed, and it's putting pressure on the levy when we project out going to the end of the levy. And you and Commissioner Boyce are both have mentioned the impact of inflation, and inflation is felt in the Office on Aging's budget. And when it's discussed in detail, you will hear that. Just a few weeks ago, you all saw an example of the impact of inflation on Children's Services budget. That impact is real. I would argue that even though our efforts have been prudent, the 3.4% increase presented today above the 2023 projected actuals is inflation driven.
So I would say, also not just with aging, that was just an example. And I said this to you all, and so I'm gonna say this again for everybody that's on the call so they could be prepared. I also, like, I didn't forget about what I said when we had our retreat, right? Or what Commissioner Boyce asked for in the retreat. So when I think about talking about challenges, one of the things that, I know I asked for when we had our retreat for HHS is like, I need to know data, like who is for Medicaid, right? We had, I don't know, however many, 400 and almost 60,000 people at that point in time. Who are the people who have been on there the longest? Right? Like, who are our returners? Right. And I know that there's challenges with being able to disaggregate that data. Some things we have control over, some things we don't. But specifically, when we're talking about budget and supporting agencies for different work, then where is that? Where are you? Well, as it relates to the things that we asked for data collection, how are we measuring poverty? How are we measuring how many people we lifted out of poverty, even how we're defining that, and what was the challenges in meeting that? Like, I want real raw data, and if you weren't able to provide that, why not, right? So talk about those challenges and being able to answer the requests that the commissioners had, and for us to be able to one, go out and talk to the public about how we're spending dollars, but there's always this conversation about lack of data, and I've asked for it. And if you're not able to provide it, also say what those challenges are. It's the state, or it's, we can't provide it. But that's also what I would like to hear as we have these presentations.
Commissioner, if I could just really quick, when we think about the challenges across just the HHS spectrum, it's all the things that you already know, right? We talked about the aging population. Food inflation is a real thing, not just for, us who are, able to pay our bills, but it's especially essential for our seniors, and the free home delivered meals that you all have approved so graciously for our seniors. If we were to take that away, we then have to think about what does that do for the hundreds and thousands of seniors who won't receive those meals, and then would have to pay the expenses of food. When we think about housing, what we know is every quarter there's at least 2,600 residents in this county who have filed an eviction, right? Have been eviction, right? These federal dollars have assisted so many thousands of people, and what we've been trying to measure is how many families were assisted by ARPA. We take that away, and then where does that put the bucket of people? I'm sorry, the pool of people who won't receive those dollars anymore. PRC, when I spoke to, actually met with the case managers and the team about PRC.
Joy, hold on. I'm sorry. Deputy County Administrator Bivens, before you go, I don't want you to go down the rabbit hole. I'm giving an example of the things that I want to hear when we have the specific agency briefing. So you don't have to tell me what the issues are, right? I just want you all to be able to answer in the specific agencies, like, following up on the commissioner's requests, where are we with those, and how does the budget impact what we've asked for? Right. So even again, another example, how many people did we bring out of poverty? How many people were in like Building Futures that got funded that might have been on assistance that no longer is, right? Like things like that. I could go to child support and talk about their programs. So I'm just saying, when you have your presentations, be prepared to answer those things.
I would just say, to that, well said. That's very, Commissioner Crawley said that very well for you. That would be very, very helpful for us, I think, as we go forward and try to make some adjustments or support what's being recommended. That's very helpful. And I like Commissioner Crawley use the term SWOT analysis. I think that's helpful. I mean, you all may, at this stage of things, if you haven't already done it, may be difficult to do because that process takes some time. But I'm glad she infused that into the vocabulary, because I really think that could be something that aligns with the things that she just lined up about, how our work and our investments are actually impacting the community, because that's where we can make some of the adjustments and audible out of things that we're doing bad and things that that we're doing right, and double down on things that we're doing right. So I agree with that 100%. I don't really have any more questions, because I think as we get into the department presentations, for me, I'd like some time now to kind of take this back. And so I would just say to the administration, maybe be prepared to answer a few more questions that are centered into the general presentation and also the specifics. And I think that would be helpful. That's me.
Commissioners, if there are no further questions, we will conclude this initial budget hearing. Again, county administration is committed to this work and implementing whatever budget, what the final budget looks like on December the 12th. We stand with our arms locked to put in this work to continue to service, progress, and excellence is what we all about. So, thank you.
Thank you.